in Justin's mind, and he know no different, he's like, let's go get the highest guarantee and the longest contract you can get, because he wanted to be, to your point, what did he think of the Chargers? He wanted to be their franchise quarterback for a long time.
Right.
So, Justin and I spent a lot of time talking about the pros and cons of that. And we looked at other contracts and educated him about the dangers of doing a long-term deal, more than a 4 or 5 year extension.
Welcome to the next episode of the Athletes First Family Podcast series featuring quarterback deals. I am Brian Murphy, CEO of Athletes First, along with my trusted sidekick and co-host AJ Stevens, who is our VP of Client Strategy and arguably one of the best negotiators in the game, if not the best. Welcome, AJ.
Thanks, Murph. The purpose of this podcast is to give our listeners an inside view of the largest and most successful NFL football agency in the industry. Our expertise in quarterbacks is the crux of this series. And today we have Justin Schulman back to talk with us about the Justin Herbert negotiation, your relationship with Justin, and everything in between.
Good to be back, guys.
Thanks for coming back, Justin. Great to see you again. But AJ, we're going to jump into the Justin Herbert's deal and the relationship and the recruiting and everything like that. But before we do, let's give the audience a little bit of a feel for the other record-breaking huge deals that Justin's led our negotiations on.
So Justin's got a great resume. The first deal that I got to work with you on was Fred Warner's. He became the highest paid linebacker in NFL history. It was a difficult one at the time. We had to come up with a unique structure to get that one past the finish line, but ended up being the record-breaking deal that it is. And then also Mark Andrews. He signed the largest 4-year contract for a tight end in NFL history at the time. In total APY, it was the second largest for a tight end. But, the average salary is not how we judge all of these deals. There's a lot of other aspects to it. He had the best cash flow through the first couple of years and the largest guarantee at signing. So all of that was a big win for us.
Insane cash flow. As we've worked on Fryermuth's deal and Cole Kmet's deal, we keep looking at that cash. Like, how did you get that cash flow? It was amazing. It was
right.
Incredible.
Yeah, it was great that way. And then with this year, you had Penei Sewell, who was the highest paid tackle in NFL history, and it was the first time that a right tackle, because he's only played right tackle his entire career so far in the NFL, the first time a right tackle became the highest paid tackle in the NFL. So that was a huge accomplishment there.
Yeah, no, all three great deals. All really proud of those, and looking forward to more.
Because Penei did that with Joe Panos as well. Phenomenal deal. And AJ, you and I know from the Ryan Ramczyk deal how hard it is to get a right tackle to be the highest paid. So that's remarkable history. That's great. That's awesome. But today we're here to talk about your relationship with Justin Herbert. Two amazing individuals who have come together and formed what I'd say is a great friendship and a great working relationship. Tell us a little bit about how did you start recruiting Justin Herbert? What was that process like?
Yeah, so Justin, it turns out the family was really close with a client of ours, Justin Wilcox, and Dave Dunn, one of our founders, was really close with the Wilcox family and was able to get in contact with the Herberts, and had a preliminary discussion and set up a meeting and asked me to attend. And it was great. Dave and I went up, sat with Justin and Justin's parents. Justin wasn't involved in the process. I think the summer before his senior season.
Went up where?
To Eugene, Oregon. Justin, ironically, born and raised in Eugene, Oregon, and then played in Eugene, Oregon. So hadn't really left Eugene, Oregon. His home, I think, is about 1.5 miles from the stadium in Autzen.
Wow.
So Dave brought me on board to help with that recruit, and we had a great meeting. Turns out we had a very, very small world connection. Found out that a close family friend of Justin's mom was someone who actually I worked very closely with on the Athletes First Classic, our charity event back, I think, when we started in 2004.
Wow.
Just very, very randomly, Justin's mom and she grew up together, which was great because it was able to give the Herbert family some kind of validation as to who we were. But
Sure.
we did that initial meeting and formed an initial contact. And Justin was really not involved in the process. Pushed everything onto his parents. So we stayed in touch with him. And then finally, once I think it was he beat Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl, shortly thereafter, we did our first and only real sit down with Justin.
So your first meeting was before the season began, before his final season began,
Correct, with his family.
and just parents or other
Just
members of
his
the family?
parents, ironically, his brother, younger brother Patrick, who plays for Oregon,
Yeah.
walked in, I think, with laundry.
Oh,
No, it was just the 2 of them.
that's great. That's great. And then you went to did you go to any of the games for the
I did. I
season?
went and spent some time at a game, saw his folks at the game. Didn't bother Justin, because Justin again was just focused on football.
Yeah.
So we ran everything through his parents. Got a great relationship with Holly and Mark, his parents, and we're able to kind of learn about Justin through them.
Yep.
And then once the season ended, they kind of engaged the process again, if you will.
And what did his parents or eventually Justin like? What did they say they were looking for in an agency?
I think the thing that stood out to me just was they wanted just someone to take care of their son
Yep.
and to educate them and make sure they had their son's back. And like I mentioned, Mark and Holly just, good people, down home, no ego. And that was very evident in Justin. He's just one of the most humble, hardworking people there is. And for them, I think it was just about who can take care of them. Who can take care of them. The family atmosphere, I think, was
Yeah.
important. Obviously, the fact that Dave had connections with the Wilcox family, and the Wilcoxes were able to connect and put the dots together all helped.
Do they have any connection to Joey Harrington, one of our first clients?
Yeah, I think I'm almost positive there were pictures of Justin wearing Joey's jersey when he was younger. So obviously the Oregon connection helped as well, and I believe Dave got him involved. And we'd represented, Kellen Clemens and other Oregon players, Adam Snyder as well. So we were able to really kind of work the entire network.
Sure.
Whether it was Chip Kelly or Dana Altman, their basketball coach, there was a lot of ins that we looked at.
I think when you have those many mutual contacts, I think it builds up some trust, right? Like, oh, if you worked with Joey Harrington or AJ Feely or Kellen Clemens, then we know we can trust you. But like ultimately, I think what we say is the fact that we, work for Kellen Clemens doesn't mean that, and he enjoyed it, doesn't mean that we're right for Justin Herbert,
That's
right?
correct.
And so at the meeting after the bowl game, Justin Herbert walks in. What's your first impression of Justin?
Uh, he looks the part.
Really?
I mean, that was just, he looks like what a franchise quarterback should look like. And just the way he listened and some of the questions, the way he paid attention to it, were just really impressive. Again, digging into contracts and how we would handle things like training and whatnot, and hearing what was important to him. Something that struck me, he didn't have a quarterback coach that
Mhm.
was kind of his guy. And a player I represented, John Beck, is a renowned kind of quarterback coach for college and pro quarterbacks, big hunter, fisherman, just like Justin. And ironically, Justin was interested in talking to him. We had John fly up the next day, and they sat down and just hit it off. And so again, it was just trying to build, the team around it. Just kind of made sense. But Justin's an impressive guy.
Yeah, and kind of interesting because I think that year in the draft, we represented Tua for all of his marketing and off-field endeavors, but not his contract. And then Justin called you and Dave and said, "Hey, I'm going to hire you for contract, but not the marketing." So in that way, we did work with both Tua and Herbert in the draft. And when did you find out that Justin was going to hire athletes first?
So I think it was the day 2 days after we did our meeting.
Oh wow,
We did the meeting. John Beck flew up the next day to meet with him. We stayed in town, and then I think it was the next day Justin called Dave, let him know he was gonna wanted to start. I got involved in terms of getting all the logistics together, and I think we flew Justin down that night. So 48 hours after the meeting, and we went to work. And for Justin, it was really his first time living outside of Oregon.
oh yeah.
So it was definitely all new to him. So it was great to spend that time with him during the training program. Went to the Senior Bowl, went to the Combine, killed it at both. And then, ironically, we were up for his pro day, and that's when the world shut down for COVID.
Oh wow,
So it was a very unique time period during the draft, right? The draft was done virtually. We weren't allowed to be with him.
that's right.
And then when he moved down here, when he signed with the Chargers, he moved down here. He really didn't know anybody. So he's down here during COVID, doesn't really know anybody. So we kind of adopted him as our third child, and he would spend a lot of time at the house. And I think it was helpful to ease that transition to a completely new place.
So when you see down here, we're in Orange County. You live in Orange
Yeah,
County. He was drafted by the
the
Chargers.
Chargers.
Yep.
Yeah.
And were you was it how was the draft? I know you weren't with them. You probably talked to him on the phone. Like, was that a surprise? Was it?
We knew that obviously there were teams in that area, Miami. So Joe Burrow was clearly the number one pick, and then you got into some other teams in that area. I think Miami had the fifth pick, and the Chargers had the sixth pick. And I just remember Tom Telesco, the general manager, after the Dolphins chose Tua, sent me lightning bolts. So that was the sign it was going to be Justin. I know, there was some questions about would Jacksonville, I think, who was at 9 in the draft, was had done some work on him and whatnot. But yeah, get the message from Justin, and we were all just fired up.
So, like most people think about Justin Herbert, franchise quarterback, Pro Bowl quarterback. You said he looks the part, he plays the part. But at the time, he was 22 years old, moving down to Orange County, leaving Eugene, Oregon for the first time, as you said. COVID's here, so it's kind of a strange, lonely place. So you live at home with your wife and two kids at the time,
Yep.
right? So he just came to your house and hung out.
Yeah, we would just have him over, whether it was for food or whether it was, we'd play board games or anything like that. Once the world opened up a little bit, we was, go do an escape room or things like that. Justin's just a normal guy. And that's the best part about him. We did spend a bunch of time on the golf course. He's really good, and I am not.
Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't live far away. We helped, find the apartment and help him get settled and everything like that. And then, that was the beauty of having him down in Orange County when the team was located here. He ended up living about a mile and a half from my house. And, you know, we would provide a refuge, I think, for him. He was comfortable with my family yeah. So whether it was cornhole, ping pong, there was always a competition.
Did you ever win a
I
competition?
was just
It's funny.
Did he let you win something?
He is competitive,
So
and that's what makes him great. But you know, I would say there was some good competitions. It was him and my son against me and my daughter in cornhole, routinely, and yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. And again, he just treated my family so well, and really appreciate it. But yeah, good
usually the
experience.
losing team says it was a lot of fun. They don't
Yeah,
say
yeah,
you won
yeah,
something.
yeah. No, it was a ton of fun. Yeah,
No comment.
that's great. So he's drafted by the Chargers. He's down here beating you at every sport you play.
Right.
And then just walk us through, like he's on his rookie deal. Like, how did the first couple of years of his career go?
I think there was that expectation that he wasn't going to play, and I think, frankly, I was hoping he wasn't really going to play. Tyrod Taylor was brought in to be the starting quarterback that year, and I want to say it was week 2 or 3, early in the season against the Kansas City Chiefs, where I turn it on and Justin's starting, and that was the whole episode where Tyrod got an injection before the game and had an adverse reaction and whatnot. Um, and it was just kind of a shock. And I just remember I called him after the game. I said, "Come over to the house, like, let's have dinner." And he walked in, he was like, "Holy cow." And it was, he went on to play really, really well that year and but that was never the expectation. I don't think that was the team's expectation. I don't think that was his expectation. But he was able to build from there. I think year 2 was the Pro Bowl year. Makes his first Pro Bowl, and year 3, I think it was his first playoff game. So there was that, progression through the years.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, a great career, a great start to the career, first 3 years. Like you said, surprisingly early start, but he rose to the challenge
That's right.
and did a great job. Like, how did he like his Orange County Chargers experience during those years?
I think he loves the franchise, still does,
Yep.
loves the franchise and feels loyal to them. I mean, he grew up, ironically, I'm sure everybody saw it, like, either wearing a Chargers jersey or writing that he was going to play quarterback for the Chargers, when he was a kid. So it was all great, especially because the family was not too far away. Oregon's not too
Yep.
far away, but really enjoyed the organization and the coaches that he got to work with. Established some really good connections, and definitely was a place where he wanted to be long term.
Okay. And so then he's clearly a team leader, and we have a lot of players on the Raiders, including like Derwin James, like has been a captain and a leader for a long time, and the Chargers. Yep, sorry, and fits in. And then at the end of year 3,
Right.
so you play 3 years in the league on your rookie contract. After your third year, you can negotiate. You can negotiate your veteran deal.
And which is pretty standard, right? In this day and age, you
Well,
want
it's in the CBA. You're not allowed to negotiate an extension until after the 3rd year.
right.
So that's the first time that the team can even approach a player about a contract.
And I think history had shown, like, if you have a guy, you want to get that done after the third year, or at least start the process. So that's when it started for us.
So, like right after the last game of that season, or at what point? Do you remember?
I think we had our first initial discussion at the combine.
In February.
So February following the season and right before free agency, sat down with a couple of their executives and they had expressed an interest to start working on the process. They did say it would be, after the draft. They wanted to
Yep.
get through the draft, but to them, it was a priority. He was their cornerstone and wanted to have wanted to get that done. They started planting seeds about it being a team friendly deal and what that would mean to them and
Sure.
everything like that. John was Spanos was very very bullish on that
Sure.
and did not pulling any punches. And so we had that initial discussion at the combine and we agreed to touch base later. After the draft happened, we set up a lunch at Javier's of all places, a
Nice.
great Mexican place here in Southern California. So we met, I think it was 3 folks from the Chargers and Dave Dunn and myself and met, had lunch, talked again more philosophically, more than
Yep.
anything about what was important to the team, what was important to Justin and those things and how the market had changed.
Yep.
Because I believe at that point Jalen Hurts had done his contract and had become the first $50 million player.
Yeah, and then Lamar quickly followed him, right?
That's correct.
So
So I think we did ours after I think when we started the process, I don't know if Lamar was done, but Jalen had just done his extension
Yep.
and was in a similar situation. Played 3 years. He had 1 year left on his contract.
right.
But we knew that all these things were gonna happen. Lamar had just been franchised, I believe it
Mhm.
was, so was coming off the franchise tag. So, at that lunch, we kinda talked philosophically about it. So call that May.
Okay. And then, so I mean, one thing we talk about at Athletes First is like, every negotiation is different. Like this whole series talk about Dak's deal and Deshaun Watson's deal and Jordan Love's deal, Tua's deal, and Justin's deal. But I think every agent's different in terms of how the lead negotiator. But I think each agent does the same thing. They have to have the negotiation process be reflective of the person for whom they're negotiating,
Yep.
right? And so, tell us a little bit, like when you sat down with Justin, and you probably could have guessed because you guys are so close. But like, what did what did Justin want? That I'm guessing Justin didn't want you using the media and slamming the table, right? Like he wanted a different approach. Like what was that approach going to be like?
Yeah, it's a great point, Murph. Like this one, in my mind, was going to reflect Justin the person, which was, we wanted something that was strong, something that set the market, but that helped the team
Yep.
accomplish some of their goals. Um, it was not going to be contentious. It was not going to be negotiating the media. When it got done, not that it was going to be a surprise that it was done, but it wasn't going to be everybody watching the clock to
Yep.
see when the deal was done. In our mind, it was we wanted to get it done before training camp, before he stepped on the field and, took some hits. That was the ideal goal. And I
Yep.
think the Chargers had the same goal. So, we spent a lot of time educating Justin
Yep.
about the market. And, frankly, this is why you hire an agent. He wasn't familiar with things like cash flow guarantees, term. In Justin's mind, and he know no different, he's like, let's go get the highest guarantee and the longest contract you can get because he wanted to be, to your point, what did he think of the Chargers? He wanted to be their franchise quarterback for a long time.
Right.
So, Justin and I spent a lot of time talking about the pros and cons of that. And we looked at other contracts and educated him about the dangers of doing a long-term deal, more than a 4 or 5 year extension. Um, but understood that guarantee was important to Justin, and he wanted to not go somewhere. He wanted to go somewhere and then be somewhere. He wanted that commitment. He also wanted the team to be able to build. He didn't want to be the contract to be an albatross.
Hmm.
So we spent a lot of time that off season, kind of educating him. Every you know every time he would come over to the house a lot, and we would actually go for walks, 3 to 4 times a week. We would
That's
go
quite a sight in your
in
neighborhood.
our
Like, hey,
neighborhood,
there's
and
Justin Herbert walking
right.
through the neighborhood.
We would, 2, 3, 4 times a week, we would do 5, 6 mile hikes and talk about life, but then also talk about the contract and what was important to him and whatnot. Every time we made a proposal, every time they made a proposal, we had a kind of a running template that we would show him as to how the contract was working and how things changed.
An AJ special, the template.
And AJ special. No, it was great. Working with AJ on it was tremendous because it was able to bounce different ideas off of it. We looked at some of the other contracts and the pros and cons and tried to take everything. And I know, candidly, you probably would have liked a shorter deal, right? But you understood from the client perspective, he wanted a little bit longer deal. Now
Well,
the client,
I think the focus was the guarantees, and in order to get those bigger guarantees, you have to add on another year. Is really the give and take we were looking at. And when you're looking at the market, of course, Justin's first thought is, well, why don't I just do a 10-year deal, fully guaranteed, and we'll go that way. And then you have to sit and educate him on, well, teams aren't going to do a fully guaranteed deal at that length. And then you really have to peel it all back and explain to him, well, here's a 10-year deal that is in the market. It has been done, but here's the downside. This guy who signed it in 2020 on a 10-year extension, the market has gone up $15 million per year in 4 years. Or a year later, a guy, Josh Allen, signs in 2021 for $43 million per year. It's only been 3 years, and he's been bypassed by $17 million per year. And so explaining that to Justin, that if you sign for this now, in 2 years, 3 years from now, it's going to look like a discount for the Chargers just naturally because that's how the markets move. And so when he started to understand that, I think it was a big step in where we could go structurally.
100%. And, I think when you look at it now, I think he's now the seventh highest paid, right? And we're
Right.
talking about 15 months
Right.
since he did his deal.
Yeah. Yep.
But you bring up, the Patrick Mahomes really long extension. The team didn't have to touch Patrick's deal if they didn't want to,
Right.
but obviously with Patrick's success, you want to do that. And obviously we can't question why he chose that route or why Josh Allen chose his route of a longer extension as well. But for us, educating him about the changing market and most importantly, I mean, we haven't said it yet, the growth of the salary cap. That's
Mhm.
the reason. Is the extreme ballooning of the salary cap is why you want to get to the market back to the market sooner. I mean, at the end of the day, they're making a ton of money, but there's a reason it's the highest paid position in sports. And, the shorter deal gets you back to the market again.
I think also, like, I think exactly what you just said. Our goal, we're supposed to educate our clients, give them all the information, educate to empower, and then they have to decide what they want to do, right? And we give them advice, right? But we've done the largest deal in NFL history 12 times for a quarterback, right, over our career. And I think all 12 times the team came and said, "Oh, listen, quarterback, if you want to get all this money, we're not going to be able to win a Super Bowl." Right? It says, like I said, John Spanos probably his go-to line, right? Heard that a million times from him. But like, you know, and that's if I'm Justin Herbert, and especially someone like Justin Herbert who cares so much about winning his teammate, he'd be like, "Oh, listen, I don't need that much money if it's going to hurt the team." So when the Chargers said that to you, and it's a genuine concern of Justin's, right? It's an authentic concern. He's real. I don't want to. I'd rather win a Super Bowl than maximize my contract for sure, right? How did you guys deal with that? What was the response?
I think the biggest part is educating them on cash and cap are two completely different things.
Yep.
And whereas cash isn't really fungible, this is how much cash you're going to make. How it affects the salary cap is can be manipulated. Every team has a way to do it. Whether it's you can kick the can down the road, you can bite the bullet and take a little bit more this year. And in the structure that we ended up working with the Chargers, um, his cap numbers are fairly manageable.
Right. Yeah. I remember including, you talk about the template that we would show to Justin, every single proposal that would come in and go out. We had lines in there that showed what the salary cap hit would be in each year of the deal from the Chargers proposal and then from our proposal.
Right.
And so we could easily show him it's the exact same cap hit over year one, year two, year three, and it really isn't going to affect their position as far as building a roster or a team around you until maybe year five. So when we actually finalize the deal, the cap hit in the first year it's $4 million. And remember, this is a deal that averages $52.5 million per year. It never actually exceeds a $47 million cap hit until after the fourth year of the contract. So it's one of those things where yes, the team is working with a finite set of resources, but they can be manipulated when it comes to the salary cap.
No doubt. And I think there was a couple of other things, right? The team didn't want to fully guarantee things at the very beginning because of an archaic funding rule that probably should go away.
Yep.
Shockingly, it hasn't. But, we worked with them on their structure, right? So, okay, what was important to you? The funding portion of it. All right, fine. Then let's work around and find ways to get through that. What's important to us? Guaranteeing cash flow. So if you focus on those two things, okay, quid pro quo. We'll help you, you help us. I will say, and you brought it up, this was the first negotiation I think I've done with a client where literally when we share the information, we include the cap, ramifications.
Mhm.
And that was because it was a focus for him. And I think, one of the other big parts that I had to educate Justin on is, let's say you save them money. How do you know that they're going to spend it how you would want them to spend it?
Right.
There's no guarantee for that. They're not going to ask you, should we pay this receiver X, right?
It's funny you say that you don't usually see the cap hits in the template that we use for all of our negotiations, but it in all of the quarterback deals because it always comes up in the quarterback negotiations. Every team is saying, "Well, the cap hits this is going to affect us," and then at some point, someone from the team mentions it to the player. We have to build around you as well, and so it's something that we're educating the quarterback specifically on every single time. So whether it be Dak, Jordan, Deshaun, Justin, Tua, all these guys, like it's something that ends up at the bottom of the chart.
Well, the other interesting part is once you get a proposal from the team and you show Justin, listen, this is where they're comfortable at. So even they understand that the cap numbers are going to be big, so now you're negotiating. So at least educate them. Listen, it's not just us. Like the team understands this is what you have to do.
That's right.
I think it's another benefit. AJ and I keep talking about, like, having done so many of these record-breaking quarterback deals. Like, it's a very strong argument that the teams can make, but it's just wrong. You know what I mean? And it's not right. It's not completely true, right?
It's the fallback,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Blame it on the cap.
Yep. And then the other part, like, and this is a whole nother episode, but we go into, like, okay, like, you also, like, you have 22 starter offensive defense. Like, some of them are going to be rookies. You have to draft well, right? And then you got to go sign some mid-tier veterans that outperform the contract. So there's a lot more to put in championship team than just spending the money,
Which goes to the point that I was saying to Justin, like, if you quote unquote save them money, do you trust that they're going to spend it well? And
Right.
you don't know that. You don't control the draft. So
And they'll try their best, and they're very good at finding talent, right?
100%.
But all right, so that's philosophy. Obviously, Justin's a very special individual, and you guys, your approach reflected it. It wasn't done in the media; it was done quietly. It was done cooperatively, collaboratively. But then a deal, like, AJ, walk us through what the deal was.
Yeah, so what we end up finalizing, it's a 5-year extension, $262.5 million. So it averages 52 and a half, which is record breaking, highest average annual salary for any player in NFL history. And it has $218.7 million guaranteed in the deal. Also record breaking.
right.
But I want to ask you, do you remember when we started the negotiation after having had that whole conversation with Justin about, no, we don't want to do a 10-year, 12-year, 8-year fully guaranteed deal, the first proposal that we actually ended up getting from the Chargers?
Oh gosh, it must have been like an 8 or a 9-year extension. It was completely. I love Ed McGuire and his team, but it was like it was something. It was a first proposal, and
Yeah,
it was not something that we would ever consider. Um, I think our counter was, okay, if you want to play that game, then we'll do a 3-year extension,
right. Yeah.
right? And
But was an 8-year deal worth how? I mean, you probably remember, but like worth I mean, over $200 million for sure, right?
Right.
yeah,
s-
it was.
Still,
It was.
a very big sum of
You
money
can buy a lot
on an
of real
8-year
estate
contract.
But
in
it was
yeah,
below $50 million
per
on
year.
per
Per
year
year.
Yeah,
on APY. The guarantees vested early, or I'm sorry, the guarantees ran out early
Yep.
because it was 8 years. So it was actually the concern that Justin had was, or what Justin said wanted was, I'll take a long-term deal that's with big guarantees. It was a long-term deal with not
Without
enough
the guarantees.
guarantees.
starting point though. It
I
was a
I think
starting
Correct.
point. Yeah, yeah.
I think
yeah.
their rationale was, well, we saw Josh Allen at 6 years. We saw Patrick Mahomes at 10 years. Justin's just as good of a player, we think, in our mind. So we're going to give him more, but it's going to be a split of the difference. It's going to be 8 years, and completely ignore the fact that the salary cap had gone from X to X over those years.
And I think, they, and like I said, understand where Ed's coming from. They probably thought Justin's such a good guy that, we'll get a.
Both Justin's are good guys. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well,
but
with Tom Brady took less,
well,
to build his team. Mahomes took less. Justin will take less.
but you guys, I mean, you had the highest APY average per year ever in the history of the NFL. You had the highest guarantee ever in the history of the NFL. Both big wins.
Yep.
Great for Justin, his family to come for years. But there was another part of that deal that I think was really stood out to me when I was looking at the deal you guys. What was that?
So, and this might be the biggest accomplishment or milestone of the deal from my perspective, looking back, like, yes, it's record breaking on the guarantees and the average, but the cash flow of it was exceptionally strong and record breaking. So a lot of times, and I think our audience may not understand that when you hear a contract is an average of $52.5 million per year, that doesn't mean that the player makes $52.5 million every year. That's not his average or his annual salary. It's an average. So when we're talking about the cash flow, we want as much of it to be paid up front because the money in your pocket, you have, and then the time value of money, where the sooner you have it, the sooner you can start investing it, building wealth off of it,
That's
right?
correct.
And across the NFL, there's examples of deals that are going to be more backloaded. Like Patrick Mahomes' deal, for example, it's a 10-year extension, but it averages less than $40 million over the first 4 years of the deal. So then it builds up to become an average of $45 million on the full 10 years. There's deals like Jalen Hurts where after the second year it averages 51 million, and then through year 3, through year 4, through year 5,
Flat.
it's still $51 million. Our goal was to get as much of that money up front as possible. And when we finalized the deal, he ends up with this record breaking number
Yep.
of $100 million of new money through the first year of the extension. And when we compare that to the previous record, which was Lamar Jackson, who signed shortly before or maybe after we had actually started the negotiation process, and he was a guy who had played out all 5 years of his rookie deal. He was facing the franchise tag. He set that record for $80 million in the first new year of cash,
Mm-hmm.
and so our goal was to blow past that, and that's exactly what we did. Was we finalized it with $100 million in first new year cash. And I think another aspect of that is the deals that we compare Justin to because of the situation. Those were the Kyler Murray, a year prior, had done a deal with 2 years left on his rookie contract. You had Josh Allen 2 years before him, had 2 years left on his rookie contract. And when you compare the cash flows of those deals, where Kyler had, was it
72.5.
$72 million in the first new
Yep.
year? Josh Allen had $68 million in the first new year. So we took the exact same uh, scenario with a player 3 years into his career, 2 years left on his contract, and absolutely blew by those guys. And I think that was a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, I think that I remember seeing a chart that you had put together that showed how, you know, everybody had beaten the deal ahead of them by like either hundreds of thousands or maybe like $1 million in new money.
Mhm.
And again, like, I don't know if you've explained this on other episodes, but the concept of new money, right? We're talking about, so the first new year, so Justin had 2 old years remaining at approximately $33 million, let's say. So if you take those 2 years and then the first new year, so year 3, that means through 3 years he was going to pocket $133 million instead of the 33 over 2. Just to kind of put that out there. But yeah, for us, listen, the total APY of 52.5 broke the record, right? Lamar's record, I believe it was.
Mhm.
You know, that wasn't similar to the Mark Andrews deal, which you referenced before. I don't think that was our biggest focus. Our biggest focus was cash flow and guarantee.
Mhm.
Justin really wanted the guarantee, and I think his 217 was the second most guarantee uh,
It was the most at the time,
with Deshaun Watson.
other than Deshaun Watson.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought. Sorry.
Wait, who's the expert here?
I
Go,
was
go
about to
on.
say,
Don't correct the expert
should
on
we
tape.
switch seats?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, aside from
Sean
Deshaun's
Watson, also athletes first, just different agent, David Mulligata.
Right.
episode 2 be coming.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
No, it was the second most guarantee, right? So we checked that box. And then the cash flow was obviously really important. So listen, you're not always going to win on every scenario, as you know. And I think my kind of, in doing it with Mark and in doing it with Panay and doing it with Justin, I'm a big believer in I'll sacrifice the APY for more money up front. Because at the end of the day, my belief is players aren't going to get to that the end of that contract. So, get as much as they can. You mentioned it before, put it in their bank account, start investing it. That's where you can really turn it into something else.
And you never know what's going to happen too. And my philosophy when I was doing contracts is, listen, like as much money as you can put in your pocket right away. I mean, Justin Herbert's an amazing person. He's not going to get in trouble. Nothing's going to happen. But you just don't know what life's going to come your way, right?
1,000%.
And so you just want to get it all in there. But I think one thing I do want to emphasize before we move on to lessons learned is that you said this, Justin. Like every player is different. Like we did not negotiate Patrick Mahomes' deal or Josh Allen's deal. We have no idea what was important to them.
Right.
So I'm sure they got exactly what they wanted, right? And on the flip side, when we talk about all these great facets of the deal, I mean, we didn't win every aspect. Like, I mean, the Chargers had goals. One of them was doing a 5-year deal instead of a 4-year deal, right? Which happened to coincide with Justin's goal. But, I mean, I think it's every situation is different. And like, the Chargers, like the Packers, like sometimes they're going to pay more money up front because that works for their family. That works for their team. So I think, when we do these deals, obviously we want to go out and get the absolute best deal we can for our players. We do that 100% of the time. But both sides win, and I think that's that's we don't want to lose track of that.
I think it's the what is it, the Michael Scott win win win,
Yeah,
where,
yeah,
again, it seems cliche, like you and I talked about kind of strategies. I mean, you won't like it when I say this is, but like you want a cooperative result, right? Like a cooperative result, and where the team walks away maybe a little unhappy because they did something they didn't want to do. You walk away maybe a little bit unhappy because you left something on the table you didn't want to leave. But like at the end of the day, this won't be the last negotiation you have with the team.
right,
That's the other part of
right.
it.
And I think when you say that, that is what you want as a lead negotiator for all these deals we talked about. You're a collaborative person.
That's my MO.
As we'll see from other podcasts in
It
the
will
future,
not be
it
that
might
way.
not be the same for
It
all of
may
our agents.
it may
You know
it
what I
may
mean?
not be that, and that's okay.
It all works.
It
Yeah.
all works.
We're only talking about record-breaking deals here, so obviously it worked, and we just get their different paths,
That's exactly
Right.
correct.
All right, well, listen, let's wrap up with the lessons learned here. What did we learn from this? And I think, my lesson learned here, and again, we think of this as we go, this sua sponte here, but listen to you talk about Justin and whatnot. It's just my lesson learned is just a reminder how blessed we are to work with people like Justin Herbert. I mean, just a family guy. And I don't, again, I don't know Justin like you do, right?
Right.
But just from a great family, a true leader, zero ego from what I can see. I'm not in the locker room with him, but someone who like, comes to your house, plays cornhole, spend times with your kids, with your wife, goes on walks through your neighborhood with you, trusts you and the rest of the team to get him what he wants, but also like rolls up his sleeves and understands every single proposal going back and forth. I mean, we're lucky to have Justin Herbert. The Chargers, Southern California is lucky to have him. And that's my lesson learned today. Just a reminder, is why we do put the athletes first because they're just such great people, and the 22-year-old coming down, not knowing anybody, that's real. That's who he was. So I'm thankful to him and you, and that was a great experience, great outcome.
Yeah, I think my takeaway is, this is the Athletes First Family podcast, and in hearing the story about Justin basically coming down and spending all that time with you and your family and becoming a part of your family, it's exactly what we talk about when we say, our clients' families, they all become a part of our family. And I think that's a prime example of that. I would even say that we maybe make the silhouette of Justin and Justin walking down the sidewalk is like the logo of our podcast going forward.
I still can't believe that. Like I'm like out there. If I was mowing my lawn or something, I'd be like, okay, I know that's the flag football coach Justin Schulman, but what is that Justin Herbert?
Well,
Well,
the best is literally some people would know that we were out and go wait for us to get to them for an autograph or something like that.
from both of you.
Not from both of us. Listen, what I learned from this experience with him is this goes back to our previous episode is, you gotta love what you do, and I loved educating him, like, and walking him through the process, and also hearing from him what was important. I think so many times it could just be, "Hey, the client wants this, doesn't matter, I'm gonna go do what I think is best for the
Yeah.
client." But educating him and hearing what was important to him and, you know, again, what was important to him was find a way to be the Chargers quarterback long term and, do it quietly and positively, and, we accomplished it, so
Yeah, great deal.
Yeah. Well,
appreciate you
congratulations on the
guys.
deal. Congratulations on the client and wonderful career. We appreciate you hanging out with us for a couple episodes. And
Absolutely. What's next? Who you got next?
next, we got our equity partner, Ryan Williams. We're going to talk about Ryan Williams and all his great journey from intern to student manager at UCLA to equity partner at Athletes First and his tour deal, which again, both came out same draft and but very different paths to where they got, but both guys got to record breaking deals. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.